From The National, this is Trending Middle East. I'm Ban Barqawi. It's Tuesday, March 18th. Here are today's headlines. Syrian troops have deployed at border areas with Lebanon following clashes between Hayat Tahrir Al Sham and fighters aligned with Hezbollah. It comes after the killing of 3 Syrian soldiers, which the HTS-led defense ministry said were abducted by Hezbollah. But Hezbollah has denied the accusations. The clashes mark a major escalation despite efforts by the two governments to improve relations.
We're witnessing right now the worst clashes at the Lebanon-Syria border since the fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime.
The National's Nada Atallah reports.
HTS, so the new Syrian rulers, are saying that Hezbollah, the Lebanese group, which is an ally of the former dictator Bashar al-Assad, is behind the killing. And they're saying those 3 soldiers were on an anti-narcotic mission. We talked to Hezbollah and they're completely denying it. And they're saying that the violence comes from local Lebanese residents who are defending themselves against what they're saying are thieves who smuggle themselves into Lebanon. And they're saying that those groups of local residents have nothing to do with Hezbollah.
A Hezbollah member said that a retaliatory Syrian bombing killed a 15-year-old Lebanese boy. Footage on pro-Syrian government channels reportedly showed HTS-led troops firing rockets at Hezbollah positions. They also showed a Syrian tank being hit in the clashes.
The incident triggered a massive reaction from Syrian forces with a night of intense bombardment at the Lebanon-Syria border, especially in the region, the Bekaa Valley, and especially on a village called Kaiser, where lots of houses were destroyed. This is not the first time that we are witnessing clashes at the Syria-Lebanon border since the fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime. Syrian new authorities are saying they're trying to dismantle Hezbollah supply route via Syria, which was like traditionally the most important route to smuggle weapons and money. Now the question is how long the conflict will simmer. We've talked to Lebanon security sources who said that the situation was still under control, but until how long the situation can stay like this.
Officials gathered at a donor conference in Brussels on Monday to address reconstruction efforts and challenges of helping Syria restore basic services, education, and jobs. It comes after the EU partially lifted sanctions on the country last month to encourage investment in its economy. The National Sunniva Rose is at the conference.
There's a lot of challenges because Syria today lays in ruins. There's massive displacement inside the country, issues with water and electricity, and high unemployment. The EU may have lifted some sanctions, but it's still impossible for the Syrian diaspora to send remittances back home via the traditional banking system, so there's more to do. And EU officials have said that they want to help Syrians with basic services and contribute to redoing the electricity grid. They've also said they're looking into job creation with, for example, cash for work programs. So they're typically conducted in humanitarian crises to give people short-term employment by building public infrastructure.
This year's donor conference is the first time the EU has invited a representative of the Syrian government to attend. It's also the first such conference to take place since former President Bashar al-Assad was ousted in December.
The overwhelming majority of EU countries had cut ties with the Assad regime after the brutal repression of anti-government protests that started in 2011. So this conference is usually about raising funds for Syrian refugees who live in the Middle East region, but without engaging with the Syrian government. So the fact that we saw a representative of the interim government in Brussels is really quite a strong indication of Europe's engagement with the new rulers in Damascus.
But renewed sectarian violence has raised concerns over the decision to ease sanctions. The EU bloc issued a strong statement condemning last week's sectarian killings of at least 1,400 Alawites in Syria and called for the authorities to pursue those responsible. Interim President Ahmed al-Shara has set up an independent investigation committee and said that perpetrators would be referred to the courts.
The killings show the lack of control the interim government appears to have on the country. I asked the EU Foreign Affairs Chief Kaja Kallas what consequence these killings would have on the EU lifting its sanctions on Syria, because it's a process that can be reversible if there are violations of the rule of law or if minorities are not included in the political transition. She seemed to say that the lifting of sanctions should continue, and she said it was a difficult discussion, but it was important that the interim government hold the killers accountable and to give hope to the population from the EU by, continuing its sanctions lifting.
More than 5,800 tons of aid from the UAE is heading to Gaza after arriving by ship in Al Arish port in Egypt. It's the largest aid shipment sent by the Emirates under a humanitarian campaign launched following the outbreak of the war with Israel in October 2023. It's the latest show of solidarity by the UAE with the besieged enclave. Ali Al-Shouk reports.
The Zayed humanitarian ship number 7 departed on March 1st from Hamriya port in Dubai with the humanitarian aid including food, medicine, medical equipment and shelter materials. And this shipment also comes as an effort to intensify and to extend a fragile ceasefire in place since January. So this vital aid is part of the UAE operation which aims to support Palestinians in Gaza during the holy month of Ramadan. And the national went with representatives from several humanitarian organizations to Al Arish port in Egypt. I traveled with the UAE mission to Gaza like 5 times since the outbreak of the conflict. And I saw the Emirati mission there. It's like a beehive, like they are very organized. Their work starts from the UAE when they pack all the humanitarian aid. And then this aid arrived to Al Arish. And it's arrived by like hundreds of airtrips and ships. And then lorries carry the aid from Egypt to Gaza through Rafah border.
The initiative launched by President Sheikh Mohammed has so far provided more than 65,000 tons of aid through air, sea, and land. Another 3,700 tons were airdropped to inaccessible areas. 15 months of war have devastated the Gaza Strip, making access to adequate food, shelter, and life-saving medical care increasingly difficult. The UN Agency for Children reported that roughly 1 million children there are living without the basics they need to survive. Charities have told The National that the UAE's aid drive is crucial for responding to the dire situation on the ground. That's all for this morning's headlines. You can get these stories and follow live updates at our site. Dan Barqawi, The National.